Welcome to the finale of Super Smash Bros. Battle of the Decades. This is the end of the Battle of the Decades. Daisy, Pokemon trainer Rosalina / Luma, and Dark Cat will fight to see who's the best video game icon from 1980 to 2020. Here are today's finalists. After being ridiculed for being a heavy knockoff of Peach in her first appearance, Daisy is here to prove that she is the rightful leading lady. Video game second banana female, and a weird and obscure retro character, she is Rosalin's happy princess who first appeared in Super Mario Land, released in the year 1989. Winning, bringing back the 80s, and back to prove that she is nothing to scoff at. Give it up for Princess Daisy! Real name Red, he has made more appearances than many Pokemon protagonists who appeared after him. He was Pokemon League champion, now replaced by former Kanto Elite for veteran Lance. Despite being replaced by Charizard just for Smash 4, he came back to Ultimate with Charizard, Squirtle, and Ivysaur now at his side. Born in Pallet Town, he was the first trainer to become a Pokemon Master. His first appearance was Pokemon Red and Green, released in Japan on February 27, 1996. The very first super boss in Pokemon gaming history, and hailing from the 90s tournament winner. Pokemon Trainer. First appearing in Super Mario Galaxy. Released around 5 years after the Japanese release of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, she is a space queen who was new to gaming in Nintendo Wii's early years. When Rosalina was new to gaming, she took the spotlight away from Daisy and had a better reception. While beloved when she was new, she made it to Smash 4 as a playable character. She is here. Rosalina is here to prove that she's the best princess in the galaxy, and glad that Daisy is just a mediocre Peach clone having no purpose in video games outside of spin-offs. The most recent Nintendo princess and winning the 2000X tournament. Here's Rosalina and Luma. First appearing in Kid Icarus Uprising, released on March 22, 2012, one day before it came to America. He is one of the two earliest Echo fighters in Smash Bros. History. Being one of the early 2010s characters, he is a shadow clone of Pit that fights nearly the same as his original counterpart outside of Final Smash. Pit's player 2, and winner of the last decade video game tournament. He is Pit's Echo Fighter, Dark Pit. The first fighter to win 5 battles in the Mario Brothers 4-player battle becomes Battle of the Decades champion. With that out of the way, let the final battle begin. As we begin the final battle for video game champions throughout 40 years of gaming, enter the battlefield. Round 1. Strike 1 for Rosalina and Luma. Strike 1 for Dark Pit. Strike 1 for Pokemon Trainer. Strike 2 for Rosalina and Luma. Strike 1 for Daisy! Rosalina and Luma lose. Strike 2 for Pokemon Trainer. Strike two for Dark Pet! Strike two for Daisy! Strike three! Pokemon Trainer loses! Daisy wins round one. Now we begin round two.
1, go!
Strike one for Rosalina and Luma. Strike one for Pokemon Trainer. Strike two for Pokemon Trainer. Strike one for Dark Pit. Strike two for Rosalina and Luma. Strike one for Daisy. Strike three, Rosalina and Luma lose. Strike three, Pokemon Trainer loses. Strike two for Daisy. Strike two for Dark Pet. second round win is Daisy. I'm sure Daisy is back for revenge after being left out in the 90s.
1, go!
Strike one for Pokemon Trainer. Strike one for Rosalina and Luma. Strike one for Dark Pit. Strike two for Rosalina and Luma. Strike one for Daisy. Strike two for Dark Pet. Strike three. Dark Pet loses. Strike three. Pokemon Trainer loses. Strike two for Daisy. Daisy has won 3 battles. Will somebody put an end to Daisy's perfect winning streak?
1, go!
Strike one for Rosalina and Luma. Strike one for Pokemon Trainer. Strike one for Dark Pit. Strike two for Dark Pet. Strike one for Daisy. Strike two for Pokemon Trainer. Strike two for Rosalina and Luma. Strike three, Rosalina and Luma lose. Strike three, Pokemon Trainer loses. Strike two for Daisy. Daisy's perfect winning streak comes to an end as Dark Pit wins round 4.
1, go!
Strike one for Pokemon Trainer. Strike one for Dark Pit. Strike two for Dark Pet. Strike one for Rosalina and Luma. Strike three, Dark Pet loses. Strike two for Rosalina and Luma. Strike two for Pokemon Trainer. Strike one for Daisy. Strike three, Pokemon Trainer loses. As they say, you can't take God's perfection away. Daisy has one more win to go.
Go!
Strike one for Rosalina and Luma. Strike one for Dark Pit. Strike two for Rosalina and Luma. Strike two for Dark Pit. Strike one for Daisy. Strike one for Pokemon Trainer. Strike three. Dark Pit loses. Strike three. Rosalina and Luma lose. Strike two for Pokemon Trainer. Over! Our Battle of the Decades champion is Princess Daisy.
Daisy wins!
All I got to say about Daisy is Girl Power Incarnate. This once-in-a-lifetime battle event was 40 years in the making. With Daisy winning against Rosalina, she has the right to be happy because she took back what she lost in the Wii U era and has the right to brag about being video games' leading lady. For a 90s video game reject, Daisy has proven that she is more than just a Peach knockoff and didn't deserve the video game hiatus. While most people didn't realize Daisy was a different character back in the 90s, what they didn't know is that Daisy is a tomboy. Feel sorry for Daisy all you want, but you'll have to respect her for becoming the greatest video game icon of all time. And now, here are the final results. Not only Red lost to Tai Kamiya in Death Battle, but also got under Blue Shadow in the Kanto True Power Tournament. Adding salt to injury, he ends up in 4th place. Don't get me wrong, the 90s were a great decade. It's just that many American kids hated the strict whitewashing of cartoons, anime, and video games only because it was too weird for them. Rosalina got 3rd place, and it was a good punishment. Not only she made fun of Daisy being in Peach's shadow, but also being a ripoff of Peach, and being video game's second banana female. While kids hated everything being true to social norms back in the 90s, the 2000s was a great comeback. Not only Daisy came back in Mario Tennis, but also made many gaming appearances. Dark Pit wasn't messing around, but Daisy's athletic experience, wacky fighting style, can-do attitude, and happy personality was too much for Pit's shadow clone to handle. Daisy blossomed her way to victory, and tomboy, it wasn't Peachy. The early 2010s may have not worked in Daisy's favor, but since the mid-2010s, she has finally gained the respect she deserved. That's why she made it to this game. It really didn't matter what Daisy appeared in. Thanks to Monda Cannon and her spin-off appearances, Daisy might as well be Nintendo's strongest princess ever made. The 80s were the greatest decade of all time. Not only the Jeopardy we know and remember premiered on TV, but also introduced Nintendo characters people know and remember. From pixels to 3D graphics, video games have become a staple from all over the world. I'm sorry your 90s, 2000s, and 2010s winner didn't end up becoming the greatest video game icon of all time, but you'll have to respect Daisy for working hard to win this fight. Daisy is very happy becoming Battle of the Decade's ultimate winner. For a once-in-a-lifetime event, Daisy has proven that she is the best video game princess, but Peach gets more recognition just because many people say Daisy's design was copied from Princess Peach. Congratulations to Princess Daisy for being the greatest video game female of all time. It has been a long time coming. I know what it's like being under one's shadow, but I'm happy I found a princess I can relate to. It was hard to believe it, but yes, Daisy and Peach are not the same character. I'll see you in another video. Until next time, I'm Sunset Shimmer. Thanks for watching.